Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm David Gaffney. I'm going to be today talking about how to tank a basement with slurry tanking. Now the process involved is going to show you how to do it, basically the tools you're going to need if you're going to do it yourself. And if it's done properly, this method will last up to 20 years, which is what most chemical companies will give a guarantee for. The other thing we're going to show you is how to thermoboard the walls. So by doing this, we actually make the walls warm and it's a lot nicer finish on the walls. But more importantly, we're also going to introduce some airflow. So this is basically a basement garage, which is a 1970s build, and it has actually broken down. So the original damp proofing was done. The actual membrane previously lasted extremely well, and this process will show you how we carry out and how we do our tanking. Hope you enjoy.
Cleaning off the existing paint is crucial. So where the moisture and damp has got into the paint, nothing will stick to it, and we need to put an SPR sealer onto the bare brick once we get it to this stage. This will help for everything from the tanking to the thermoboard to stick to the wall as we need it to. Before we can actually tank the actual main walls, the corners have to have a fillet seal put in. As you see from the previous picture, this is something which will prevent the cracking in the corners of the tanking. It's a stronger compound. This should be put in the corners on the bottom where it meets the floor, and if it's a ceiling that needs to be tanked, that as well. So now you can see us applying the main tanking. So the first coat we brush on, once that's gone off, we can then apply the second coat, which is done with a trowel. We prefer to trowel it on anyway. Um, Prior to this, you do need to seal all the areas. We applied 2 coats of SBR, watered down with probably about just over 3/4 SBR to a quarter water, stirred well, applied to the wall, allow it all to dry. Now this is important with tanking. Every single coat that's applied has to pretty much dry out. If you don't, then there is a possibility that it can break down. So yeah, this is important. The tanking has to be stirred with a mechanical whisk. Basically, it's a drill with a big whisk bit on it. This will make the actual consistency of no lumps, and it's just an easier way of doing it. Now, as you can see, the roof void has been exposed. We've taken down that bit of ceiling just to make sure that the tanking and the gut does go as high as it can. Now, the ground level isn't actually as high as the floor, but even still, it's better to overdo it than not to have enough or just be on the same level. Now, tanking, there are many companies that make it, but the ones that I like to use are Dry Zone and Silka. Without a doubt, they are the better ones. They come with a British kite mark, and they are kind of proven tested to really be the better quality. And you don't want to be doing this again, so it's better to spend a bit more money using the right ones. Here you can see it's being troweled on. This process, I think, is from my point of view more easier, but it is better to brush the first coat on. Once that's gone off, like I say, you can put on with a trowel. Now the walls have been done, we can do the floor. So again, SPR has to be spread over the floor, let it dry, then we can apply the first coat of tanking. The first coat I do a little bit runny so we can get a nice spread. It will obviously pour a lot easier, and just with a trowel, apply it all over the area, lap it up over the wall, and even the area where we've put the fillet seal, take it up and over that just a little bit, just to make sure that it's covered correctly. And yeah, just literally spread it around, keep it as even as possible, because eventually we're going to put a floor leveling compound just to make sure we've got a really good smooth floor. This will help for whatever sort of, if it's going to be a lino or whatever's going to be put down, this will make sure that it is a nice flat smooth surface. Now, probably by the next day, you will be able to apply the second coat on the actual floor. But once you've got the second coat down, leave it till it is really dried out. I mean, it's better to let it dry naturally. A dehumidifier sometimes can help, but these kind of things, they do seem to, for some strange reason, be a lot more efficient when they're allowed to dry out for their own way. Just airflow if it's possible, but otherwise just be patient and let it go. I mean, the entire process, you're probably going to be looking at about, say, 2 to 3 days of actually drying out. In certain cases, it can take longer. All depends how damp it is. I mean, eventually we're going to apply 3 coats of tanking to every surface just to be sure. The chemical company or the actual manufacturers recommend that it only needs 2. But again, I'd much rather have more coats on than not enough. So yeah, it's a better way. And as you can see, there's not many tools required. It's basically your trowels, a bucket, a whisk, and that's pretty much it. Obviously brushes, these are the things. It doesn't need or require many tools. I'm mainly tanking one section of this garage floor because this is going to be a room used as a studio. Now, I would recommend tanking the whole area, but there isn't actually any damp, which was tested with a damp meter, pretty much past where the radiator is. So again, if it was something which required it, we would tank the whole lot. But yeah, it's has to be a point where a budget has to be allocated for how much you're gonna do. And if at a later stage it should need to be done, then it can be. It won't be any damage caused to what we've done. We can just continue tanking the rest of the garage if the client requires it. And here you can see the end result. So now we're going to start the thermobore process. The first thing you need to do once the tanking has dried is put a PVA glue over the whole walls. This is just to help the actual board adhesive to adhese properly while it's actually going through the drying out process. Obviously you can see there's some electric cables in the way, so we've kind of taken away, there's loads of trunking before which kind of looks a bit unsightly, and the actual thermoboard we're using is a 45mm thick one, which allows us to hide the trunking behind the back of the actual thermoboard foam itself. This does obviously require cutting out, which you'll see later. Now, there are some pipes which you can probably see at the top. They will be boxed in, and you'll see that done at a later stage. So again, with the dot dab, mechanical whisk, stir it up, making sure there's no lumps in it. This is something which is quite a good way of doing. Again, all these things will be a lot better if it's used with a mechanical whisk. This is the dot dab technique. So basically you're just putting the actual adhesive on as close as you can, and literally once it's on, you put pieces of timber underneath the board because you don't want it sitting on the floor, and then we do a process just banging it onto the wall and leveling it as we go. You want to keep it as level as possible. In situations where there's window reveals, it's really important to make sure it's spot on, just to make sure it's good. But we don't have any windows obviously down there because it is a basement. So here you can see we're just taking off the electrical box, gonna clean it or cover it all up, and yeah, you can see the cable going around. So when cutting a thermoboard, I use a jigsaw to do it. Just it's easier way getting a straighter cut. And yeah, here you can see I'm taking out a section of the actual foam which will allow the actual cables and trunking to go behind the wall. And again, everything gets dot dabbed up. It's just yeah, an easier way of doing it. I mean, to some degree, the dot dab itself will allow for the thickness of the cable, but I like to put it in trunking. Admittedly, no one's going to be drilling into these walls, so it's not such a big deal, but it's always better to put trunking in anyway. So obviously make sure you do turn off the fuse board. This should be tested before you touch any wires. If anything, I would highly recommend you have a qualified electrician to do the electrical side of things. Yeah, people don't play around with electrics. It's not a good idea. So yeah, as a disclaimer, make sure that you have a qualified electrician helping out on this bit. And once that's done, you can just put the back box back on. Now, as you'll see very shortly, my brother, who is a qualified electrician, is going to turn up, and he will be doing the main connecting back up. So yeah, that's the better way of doing it. Now, as you see, I continue with the thermal boarding, and we're going to cut these sections down. Again, it's just a case of measuring from the board to the wall. Do it maybe, say, about 5 mil under, and once you've done it, draw a line on the board and just cut, and that's it.
The area I'm actually doing is probably about 3 meters by 2.5 meters. And this required 5 sheets of the thermoboard. They do come in 8x4 sheets, and this needed about 2 bags of the dot dab adhesive to actually stick them. Obviously, once it's all dried out, we will be scrimming the joints, and that will take probably 2 fills of easy fill. Again, I mean, if you know how to work a trowel, easy fill is really quick and efficient way of doing it. Once it's dried out, all you need to do is sand it down, and then you can start applying the paint to it. And again, any good quality emulsion will do. This will only be given a first coat, just so the client can then decorate it themselves without any filling to be done.
With the board adhesive, use it generously. It's always better to have a lot more on the wall. This helps also with the leveling up as well. As you can see, it's banged on with a timber. That really does suction it onto the wall, so it is gonna be nice and level for you.
Once the dot dab has dried out, I apply the sticks like shit down the corners of the actual joints. As in, when you kind of do this, you've got a nice sort of finish. Also use a CT1 silicone remover spray. This is something which you just spray down the corner and you wipe with the silicone with your finger, and it leaves it nice and smooth, no lumps, and it doesn't pull. Really good stuff. And yeah, again, once it's dried out, which takes about a couple of hours, it can be painted. Also, the tops of the skirtings will be done with this, and also all the boxing area that you're going to see soon. Now with the airflow, I managed to put a vent on the ceiling and also a vent inside the actual garage room itself. This will create a flow. Back boxes can't be screwed to the wall, they will have to be stuck. Now, obviously the lagging goes back on the pipe, and what I had to do was to get some airflow to the joists. I cut sections out of the original ceiling. This will allow a flow of air. As you can see, the vents are on, the boxing in, and this is the ducting going out through the garage that goes into a void and outside. And this is the end result. Basically, we've created a flow of air going through the whole building, through the whole garage, and then the floor gets latexed, and then we can put the skirting boards on, and pretty much job done. Also hung a door, put the liner in, and it's all ready to be used as a studio. Well, guys, thank you for watching. I hope it's been informative to you. My next video is going to be a bit about the history of my company and also my father's company, J. Gaffney and Sons. Yeah, it's going to be a little kind of a trip down memory lane for him and a life story of basically how we are and who we are and how he actually made it. Um, Please subscribe, like, share, and look forward to the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.